not good at introducing people, so I think I'll allow you to just take a minute to introduce yourself, what you do, how you do, and then we can get going. With you, Faris.
Okay. So I'm Faris Karuki. I run Peer Infrastructure. It's a cloud consultancy, help people figure out the cloud strategies. I've been in the virtualization space for 18 years now, so getting old. But it's basically all I've done all my professional life, help people with their cloud computing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Mereti. I'm with Microsoft as the leader for cybersecurity, compliance, and identity. I tinkered with virtualization with Faris a while back. Was responsible for infrastructure that was architected for making virtualization optimal with Cisco. That was UCS. And then found my way in between cloud as well as cybersecurity through Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet, and today at Microsoft, right? So excited to be here to bring tidbits on the insights I've gotten along that journey on how, best to start utilizing what it is that we have and optimizing the environments that we have. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Morning all. So Richard Modua is my name. On the sidelines, I remembered that we worked with both of them, coincidentally. So been in the industry for
about... It's a small industry.
It's either small or people are moving around too much. So
yeah,
been around for more than 15 years or so, from sales to started with coding, information systems management. Now we're looking at cloud, cybersecurity, and that's how I head cloud and cybersecurity for Liquid Intelligent Technologies for the region. Looking forward to an interesting conversation, some learnings, and interaction with you guys. Thank you very much.
So maybe to begin with, I want your reaction on the four things I said when I was opening. Did you listen? Investment. Okay, so let me recap. Investment. Are you seeing an increase in investment in cybersecurity? That's one. No code, low code in the cloud. AI in the cloud. What else did they say? Multi-cloud.
So I'll start with multi-cloud because that's sort of my primary domain expertise at the moment. I've been helping people figure that out. It's inevitable that we're going to have a multi-cloud world. And I was chatting with some folks the other day, and they said the canary in the coal mine was the Patriot Act. When the US government decided that they could spy on anybody whose data was hosted with an American-based cloud provider. And a direct reaction to that was Gaia X by the EU and GDPR. When you look at, once the EU passed those laws, all the countries started balkanizing. But the problem is that the application you need to run is not necessarily available in a market you're allowed to operate it. So if you want to use software as a service, something like Dynamics in the cloud or Salesforce in the cloud, you start running into these challenges. And authorities in Africa, partly due to taxation and, in Tanzania there was a problem with, the revenue authority used to raid your physical office and take your servers. So people started hosting servers in the cloud, and so they've asked for certain data to be repatriated. There are very hard rules on where your data will be hosted. And so if you're considering regulation latency, you're going to have, you won't get the choice of just having all your data in one particular monolithic cloud. You won't say, I'll get all my services from Amazon or Google and I'll be fine. You will run into challenges when you do that. So multi-cloud is real. What we've been advising customers and what people are doing today is sort of abstracting the underlying infrastructure. So you sort of build your applications on top of Kubernetes or something like that, so that you don't have too much re-architecture to do if you need to move to, say, a cloud in Kenya or a cloud elsewhere. When it comes to security, one of the things I found is, so if you've ever experimented with any of the public cloud providers, one of the first things that you notice is when you get into the environment, it's secured. You as the user are the one who goes out of your way to make your environment less secure. So if you roll out a VM on, let's, for argument's sake, say AWS, the default is that all the ports are closed. And you really can't do much with that VM. You're the one who goes out of your way to open up the different ports and give more traffic access, etc. Generally, even in the era of the cloud, the default, most services are still more secure in the cloud because the software is maintained more frequently, there are more eyes on the service, you've got more tools to give you alerts. But the thing is, people have a sense that they don't have control. And so they get the sense that, my data is not secure in this particular environment. But to be very honest, most of the times the breaches happen locally. Because if you see how many companies run their tech, port forwarding is very common. Instead of doing a site-to-site VPN, you're just like, no. You call your ISP, open up this port, you'll be breached. But because it's in your office, you have this sense that it's safe, and nobody's particularly interested in your environments. But the day somebody is, you pay a very high price. When it comes to cost, what I've found is the public cloud providers meter you for everything. So it's the difference between a la carte and a buffet. So, most people want to go into a cloud environment and know this is how much I'll pay, and my consumption can vary. But most cloud providers, if you want an entree, you pay for it. If you want a dessert, you pay for it. If you want a drink, you pay for it. Or there's the option to do what Fogorosho and many of these other whatevers do, which is you pay a flat fee, eat as much as you can. And that's what some of the other providers are beginning to do with dedicated environments. When it comes to cost, the typical cost driver is within the organization. In terms of consumption, like you don't understand what services you're rolling out.
We'll go to that.
Yeah.
Because there's a big story I want us to discuss about that. Yeah. Luis?
Paris has picked on multi-cloud. Allow me to pick on the investments that we're seeing in the market, right? And a recent survey that was done towards the end of last year by Microsoft, one organization was sanctioned.
The moment, if you mention Microsoft again, I'll send you a bill.
Okay. I promise not to. I will refer to an arbitrary survey that was done. I can point you to where to get the results from, okay? And this survey was across CIOs in Eastern Africa. Actually, it was across Africa. And 100% of them said they were committed to cloud. So this tells me a few things. It tells me that the benefits are visible, acceptance is there, but the challenge is not there, and that is challenge is notwithstanding, right? So there's investment in that, and specifically in what spheres. A good breakdown can be there, but I think the largest is on public or hybrid scenario, then followed very closely with SaaS applications, whatever those be. And from security, then the second one was automation, right? So in CIO's minds, what we are seeing or what we're seeing in the market is a huge investment towards cloud. Seconded, and specifically around cloud is platform as a service and then software as a service. And I think if we did a spot check here, you would sort of agree with me that there is that general acceptance of cloud. It's not where we were 5 years ago, where cloud was, yes, that's a nice thing to have. Now it's help me get there, help me do it, right? So that investment is there. But security notwithstanding, top of list, and automation, and then automation being second piece of it. Yeah. Promise no Microsoft.
You just did. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So problem with being the last is you'd either repeat or speak something outside of the conversation. So if I can start from a security point of view, I think when you look at cloud, what we are seeing again from a research that I wouldn't mention the firm is 95% of the security breaches within cloud investments are driven by the users themselves. So you would either
Please explain that.
Correct. So you would find, as an organization, you've invested in a cloud platform, and you're running your applications, you're running your services. 95% of the breaches or attempted breaches would be either initiated by a user inside or supported by a user inside, unconsciously or consciously, depending on what that user is intending to do. Now, that leads to the next view around cloud and security of your data on the cloud, where we are seeing now security being a forced cost or a forced agenda. And the problem there is that a lot of players or a lot of users or organizations wait until it is at a zero option state. So they know very well, yes, you need to invest in security. Yes, as a CFO, you've got a lot of quotes, a lot of proposals, a lot of conversations from your CIO, but you want to wait as much as possible for you to retain the value for money. What that does is it gets you closer to the breach date, because if you haven't been breached today, you will be breached. That's a guarantee almost. So what you would have spent in proactively securing your platform today, you will be forced maybe to spend 10 times that to get out of a breach. That is, if you will still have a business to run after the breach. So we are seeing a situation where security is being forced, security spend is being forced on the cloud. Now, I think the other topic that has not been touched on is the low-code, no-code conversation. And that for me is being driven by, number one, the cloud users trying to push down the costs. Because again, if you're going to build all your codes, you're going to build up multiple pages of codes and running them, compiling them on the cloud, you're consuming resources. So one of the drivers is that. But again, there is something else that is coming up that we are calling infrastructure as a code. Now, what this does is it extends the conversation of low-code, no-code. So you would go to the cloud with a low-code, no-code policy, but once there, you would find it very hard, for example, to grow within the cloud because of starting to build today. Tomorrow you have to start building again. So you have to bring in, if you bring in the infrastructure as a code, then you start growing that code of yours again. So infrastructure as a code is coming in as a way to help you manage the multi-cloud. And this conversation again leads to the multi-cloud conversation. I mean, when you have multiple cloud investments, you build infrastructure as a code. This will help you avoid, cloud owners or cloud vendors locking you in their products. So infrastructure as a code comes in as a different topic, which would be a mirror of low-code, no-code. So I think that helps you, number one, avoid being locked by your vendor, and then it brings dynamism when it comes to you utilizing the cloud and getting the benefits of cloud. So at high level, that's my view.
Okay. Good stuff, good stuff. So clearly, there are movements there. So my other question would be, where do you see the biggest opportunities for organizations around cloud? And also, where do you see the biggest challenges? Maybe we can start with you, Lewis.
Excellent. So, I think the ability for organizations to adopt cloud securely is to their own environment is where the biggest opportunity is. And we're not short of examples on how building or adopting the cloud and building applications around these particular platforms is relevant, or it's being used specifically to each of our organizations. It makes me think of a word that I've heard recently, which is tech intensity. And tech intensity really is skills, as having the capability and the ability as well to do the deployment. Let's build on what Richard was speaking about, low code, no code. Now, there are platforms that are there, there are frameworks that are there for developing, for development. You no longer have pro developers, but it's just pro developers as well as citizen developers. Now, leveraging frameworks or tools that are out there. I mean, there is the generative AI that is out here, for example. There's logics that are built to help on automating without necessarily having to learn code. That is out there. I'm really trying hard not to mention names. Right? So there's these platforms that have been built, and I think the ability then to translate what frameworks and platforms have been put out there to our environment is where the biggest opportunity really is. It's one thing having a big tech, having all these frameworks and platforms built, but how do you interpret that to your environment? And that, whoever unlocks that is where the opportunity lies. Now, challenges are many, right? And obviously, I would say the challenges are many, but if you allow me to just highlight just one, I think the biggest challenge is our inability to handle technical debt. Let me call it that, deficit. We don't have it internally, so what do we end up doing? We don't have the skills internally, or we don't have the technical tenacity internally, so we relegate that to a system integrator, to a big tech, to a vendor, and assume that they are those platform vendors, they know it. But in cloud, we all know that we're governed by what? A shared responsibility matrix. There is what the provider will do, and there is what I need to do as the owner for the business. And remember, the strategy and the strategy and the priorities are actually yours as a business, right? You cannot relegate strategy to whoever your provider is. So kicking the can down, if you ask me, is it goes down to what Richard was saying, is that I can avoid this. So that's what I'm calling kicking the can down. Avoiding it at one point, the wall is coming. So regardless of how fast you're driving or you're moving, you know very well that as I innovate, the faster I innovate, regardless of how fast I innovate, the basis is.
So is it basically a skills issue?
It's okay. Yes, you can call it that.
Okay.
And there are many ways to look at it. It's skills, it's capabilities. Let me call them capabilities. And I'm not saying we're not capable or we've not built capabilities, but when it comes to learning, there's what we've learned. But maybe do we need to unlearn and learn something new, right? So yes, he started as a developer. What he didn't tell you is a developer on what? It's probably C++ or VB, right? But things have changed down the road. We are talking citizen development with Power Application platforms, for example. So do we need to relearn those, right? And be able to adopt.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maurice?
So my view when it comes to dealing with complexity and the opportunities that are there, I found that many times organizations overcomplicate their needs. And so you find that spend is a lot higher than it should be. So for instance, I've run into organizations that pay for Office 365 for mail, but at the same time are struggling with internal document management, which is a bundled feature. This thing. So you at times the simpler solution is the best. When you overcomplicate things, you might end up as an organization spending more money than you should, and you eventually lead to breaches, outages, etc. So there are many organizations for whom, especially the smaller ones, the right call is to move to a software as a service application, because it's the easiest to secure. The vendor on the other side can actually manage it, and you just consume it as a service. Other organizations, maybe for regulatory purposes, will need to have in-house cloud environments, and in that case, you can either collocate or talk to a local cloud provider. But ultimately, simplifying things is the best thing organizations that are not in the technology space can do, and consuming the simplest services that they can. So instead of running your own mail server, you use Google Apps, Office 365, that sort of thing. Instead of running your own accounting system internally, the software as a service applications are getting very powerful.
Faris, I think one of the biggest problem or challenge also with that is that you see those subscriptions eventually become a lot and then it becomes expensive.
Yeah, but it's not the only cost. So when you look at a cost in isolation, it's very easy to say, okay, I'm spending this much on this. So if you ever run your own mail server, especially today when it's unusually difficult, because this is a bit unfair on the part of the global mail providers, the likes of Google and etc., you almost can't run your own mail service because everyone will blacklist you as a spam bot. So if you're running your own mail server, you'll probably end up using one of their services, routing your mail through their services so that it's not marked as spam. Then you have to pay the engineer to do that. You have to get the servers to do that. When you look at the total cost of ownership for a lot of these applications, it tends to be higher than if you simply moved it to somebody who can handle it better. And it's specialization. I mean, you do what you're best at. And the refusal to do that ends up costing the organization more money or productivity in the long run. Because ultimately my belief is that the organization should invest in the technology that gives it the most productivity for the least amount of money. But if your CEO is busy worried that a server will go offline, I'm not sure that's a good spend of time. Yeah.
Richard? There was a time, every time somebody will send you an email, then call you. Have you received my email? Because you're not sure whether the server was up or was down, whether you received that email. So, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I think from an adoption, complexity, and value that businesses ought or stand to gain from a cloud point of view, all those are determined, or rather the outcome is determined by how the customers or how businesses go into cloud. One of the biggest mistakes we've seen clients make is buying products, or waking up in the morning or sitting down in a boardroom and deciding, let's buy a product. You end up with a lot of products because today you will buy product A, it will be developed further, you will have to buy a different product or upgrade it or pay for upgrade, as opposed to a situation where you look at your needs and decide what is the outcome that you need. So the moment an enterprise organization gets to a point where they can buy an outcome, then they will ignore the products, they will ignore the product owners, they will ignore the product developers and go for the outcome. That immediately tells you that the moment you start experiencing that outcome, then you start getting the benefits of you having invested in that. From a complexity point of view, mostly it comes in where we find businesses trying to invest in making what is not their core. So if you are a SACCO, for example, your core business is saving money for your members, is generating more money in terms of interest or giving loans. Your core business is not building software, building applications, or building environments. When you spend a lot of time trying to understand technology, trying to understand products so that you can build your business out of that, then you will be spending, or rather investing more in making what's not your core. And you will very quickly start realizing that moving to technology is not giving you value as a business organization. So for me, those two elements, number one, don't buy products, go for your outcomes. Understand your business, understand the expected outcomes, and then have the vendors bring you the outcomes as opposed to calling multiple vendors to bring you products. Number two, make sure your aim is to focus on your core. Because if you do that, then you will leave the experts to come and do what they're good at. So engage managed services provider, engage technology service providers, and give them your wish. Their core is to build that wish or look at that dream and make it a reality for you. So avoid what is not your core if you want to really benefit from clouds. And then also make sure you don't buy products, don't buy technology, but understand your business, understand what you want as an outcome, and go for that from the market.
So I want to pick up from a point you made, Faris, about, and also Richard, about looking at the outcomes. Sometimes we don't know what our outcomes are. True or false? Just be honest. Yeah? Sometimes we don't know what outcomes to expect or what we want from technology. Is that true or false? So who do we go to? Yeah? When we want to know what outcomes to, who is a trusted advisor? And I won't mention names. Who is a trusted advisor who can give me the truth of what I actually need, not what they want to sell to me?
Given the panel, effectively asking us to self-promote. But anyway, no, the thing is, so it's just basically picking your internal stuff. You do need some level of expertise internally. You need to figure out somebody who's able to actually measure and see if you've gotten what you want out of it and who can advise the organization internally. But you can also play various vendors against themselves, and that gives you a closer sense of what the truth is.
So go to Lewis, then turn around and go to, where's Chedo? Go to Chedo, then go to, Robin is not here, but we go to all the vendors and...
Yeah, because basically all that will happen is the vendors are notoriously mistrusting of each other. So if you ask, I'll give two brands. If you ask Microsoft to come and then you ask Amazon to come, Microsoft will tell you everything wrong with Amazon, and Amazon will tell you everything wrong with Microsoft, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So you sort of figure out, okay, what's most important for me? Is it residency? Am I a bank? Then in that case, can I get this service within the country? These guys do this better than the other. But the vendors themselves, when coming to pitch, will educate you on the service you're looking for. Because all of them will come with competitive slides, market information, and you can literally ask them to how do we as an organization ensure we have the right outcomes. The organization itself is not excused from figuring out, because it's their budget, it's their P&L. If you're willing to invest in something and you don't know the outcome, that's a bit irresponsible. So you're not just investing in it because, it's cool and, it's, okay, we've had this thing can do A. Okay. Let's find the people who sell this thing and find out and what else is in the market, and then you'll get like a bigger pack of information, and then you can make a call. It's not necessarily going to be accurate, but at least it will be an educated guess, where even if you choose to go with a particular vendor, the other vendor has told you what can go wrong. So you can actually ameliorate some of your risk.
Faris. So, the interesting part is this, Chiedo, myself, or even Robin, are not at war with each other. We may appear to be, but we are not. And then where does this leave you as a potential consumer? You need to realize that a lot is expected of you. That's our honest belief. And the unfortunate bit is this, and I will give my experiences here. I've sat with some of our customers, and you're right, Harry. They do not know what they want. So it's sort of an expectation of us. You have an soft expectations of these vendors to come and tell you, go in this direction. Now, there are two ways around this. Number one, I would say trust starts playing a very key role in your adoption. But trust is not inherently given. like you will not inherently give us your trust. We have to rightfully earn it, right? And if that is the case, then you potentially then need to do the work for yourself and say, out of all these that are knocking on my door, who can I trust to go the journey on? But putting trust on the side, I say, this is what our expectation of you also is that have a platform approach. Don't go the ice cream cone way, right? Which is where we've gotten today with the previous models that have gotten us and the technologies, the way we've adopted technology. The ice cream way is what we call siloed way. So today you pick and add, you keep on adding a scoop onto your ice cream cone. Then at one point, it gets hot and all these things start falling down. When things become hot, all these silos that you put down, then they start disintegrating. What do I mean? Let's go for a platform way. You layer a mesh. You layer, this platform approach, I think the best analogy I've had so far is the waffle approach. So you get a waffle and put all these toppings on top of it, right? That's what we are saying. That at the end of it all, it's not going to be Lewis or Chiedo or AWA, or Robin. It's going to be all of us. And what we are praying is that this cake gets so expanded that we have a place to play. And guess what? In between, you get the best of Chiedo, you get the best of myself, and you get the best of Robin. I think if I'm to answer your question directly, the expectation is really on you as a customer to say, you know what? This is what I want. And when you say what you want, you will exactly get it from whoever it is that is here. And guess what? We are coexisting. We'll coexist.
Awesome.
So I think they've spoken about shared responsibility. And the first thing I said is understand what you want. I mean, what they've repeated, your outcome. Once you understand that, then you shape the conversation with all the product vendors. So, for example, if you look at how cloud came up, first of all, you would be locked on either your on-prem cloud or your on the cloud from a managed cloud service provider. Now we're at a point where you're having hybrid, you have multi-cloud, and you can survive across pod. So let's look at an example where you're building an application. So when you start the thought around building your application, apart from being secure by design, the other thing that is important, for example, if you look at this, is making your application portable. So making sure your application can work across any cloud platform, right? Once you do that, then you're going out, not specifically looking for cloud provider A or cloud provider B, but you're looking for an outcome that your application will run based on its development or based on its features. So you are not giving the product vendor or the cloud platform owner the freedom to choose for you what to do. So once you understand that, then you'll realize very quickly you will not be put in that ring of having to wait for either Lewis or Chiedo to tell you what to do, but you will be going and advising them, this is what I want from you. This is what my application needs, and this is how it will run based on how I've developed it. So you need to have the power as the customer or as the client, and having that power is education. You need to understand your business well. You need to get the people responsible, for example, to build your applications, or to build your network, or to build your services, well aware of all the capabilities around the market, and then they can build a fusion of multi-capabilities. So if cloud provider A can do AI and cloud provider B can do something else, then they will be able to build those capabilities together, and they can survive across board. And that moves to, for example, other things like now we talk of service mesh, where as you're looking at services talking to each other, not even the application level. So that also brings a lot of independence. So when you're looking at investing in technology, you have to look at all those aspects. Are you looking at the application level? Are you looking at the infrastructure level? And if it's infrastructure level, make it a code so that, again, you're not dependent on Lewis or someone else for you to run it. And then you go further up, you say, what am I using from the application I've developed? It's a service. So can I have this service be the one to determine who to talk to, how it will talk to, how it will deliver the outcome. So that is how I would look at it.
Okay. So I want to open it up to you guys. Anybody with a question? So as he's coming to ask his questions, I think the responsibility really, what I'm hearing my panel saying is it's up to us. As technology users, as technology consumers, we have a big responsibility on what kind of services and solutions that we adopt. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Alain and I work for Jesuit Refugee Service. First, I want to say thanks very much for the wonderful discussion. I think this is a great one. But unfortunately, I would say it's coming to the wrong platform according to me. Because most of the people whom I've at least interacted with are IT experts. So they know what is going on. But people take decision at the management. So my question is how the panelists here, how do you advise us in IT field to talk to the management and convince them that this solution works? I will give an example for my organization. 2 years back, I was brought to digitalize the organization and bring a solution which will help the organization have a better outcome. And when I suggested some services, let's say Microsoft 365, which has a lot, it took us 1 year and a half for teams to start working. And even 1 year for this application to start working in the organization, even when money was there. Why? Just because everyone is asking the question, who has access to the data? Who is using this? So how do we ensure that the management at the end of the day, when we have suggested to them this solution, they are able to buy it and then implement it? Because at the end of the day, most of us tech guys don't take the end decision, even when we are the budget holder. It still needs to go to the board or the management.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Any other question before we get our panel to respond to that? Okay. Who wants to take that? How do you convince the board? Yeah, Richard. I know you've spoken to a lot of boards.
Thank you. So I think again we go back to if you look at the management, you look at your executive, you look at your board, there's kind of that information pyramid. And some of the mistakes I have personally made before is going to the management or decision makers with a lot of information, a lot of jargon to look clever, a lot of product conversation, a lot of POC outcomes. And then immediately what happens, they will kind of shut you off, and then they will drop down to the next level. If you're speaking, for example, to the managing director, they would tell you, you know what, you sound exactly like my CTO, or you sound exactly like so-and-so. Why don't you have that conversation with him? So you're taken back to that technical level conversation because you've brought it that way. Now, how to fix that? And after growing a bit wiser, is number one, you enlighten these decision makers. You take time to have a conversation with them away from the technicalities. So it's a business conversation. It's a kind of operational outcome conversation. It is what value are we bringing into your day-to-day life as a business, as an MD, as a board? What is the opportunity cost of you not getting this value into the business? And have the product conversation as the last one. Now, we have, for example, been involved in cybersecurity conversations. Those are very tough ones to get through boards, to get through. And for example, with all due respect, if you look at the board members for SACCOs, based on the DNA of SACCOs, you'd find maybe it's a teacher's SACCO, it will be made of teachers. It's farmers SACCO, it will be made of very successful farmers. So their interest is different from technology. So for you to make them understand what cybersecurity is all about or what technology is all about, you must get to their level. You must bring it closer to them in a very, remove all the technicalities and try to bring it very close to them. So you have to make them understand the outcome. You have to make them appreciate the benefits. And you have to make them appreciate the opportunity cost of not investing in the expected outcome. That way, then you will have a buy-in. And also, the other thing is focusing on maybe one person. Most of the time, you'd find decisions are easier made when everybody is involved from the word go. So if you focus on the MD only, focus on your board chair only, you will have a problem. So again, inclusive conversations from the word go will also help you get a faster buy-in.
So actually, just to complement what he says, because one thing I've observed over the years is we go to people who were not born in a technical era and sort of try and scare them into acting. But just take some time to understand what the perspective is. Even if it means just reading some, there are short books you can get on like accounts and financial statements and all of these things to understand the language they're speaking and the incentives. Because I've observed a very curious conversation I've had with more than one customer. If you try and sell a customer a firewall and tell them that it's security, they'll balk. If you tell them that it will allow users to log in from home, it's the same thing. As in, you can have one that you can have VPN access in. Then the organization is thinking about productivity. It's the same budget line item. But how it was presented to them completely changes how they look at the spend. So it's human beings are notoriously poor at being able to analyze risk factors. Like that's why we have banks collapsing all this time. Like we are poor at it. Because I have this money in my pocket today, I can do something with it now. And you're telling me to spend money on what I, as an IT, as a CEO, CIO, or CFO, thinks as an unlikely risk. So you need to be able to quantify that this is not an unlikely risk. It is irresponsible to. It's like not having locks on your door in the office. And you kind of you really need to dumb it down because. The irony is the people I've found who have been able to do that with their management have been able to open passes of their management. And to date, there's a man who passed away a few years ago, but he started Blowplast, and I helped them virtualize in 2008. They were one of the most forward-thinking companies when it came to tech. And the reason I bring this up is the founder was a high school dropout. Barely knew, like he was very unfamiliar with technology. But once his team convinced him of the upsides of technology, they spent more money than most other firms did at the time. And they were able to get so much out of it. So it's ultimately just talking to them in a language they understand, much as we want to be spoken to. It's just basic empathy. Like if somebody thinks a certain way, put yourself in their shoes, the responsibilities they have, the things they're responsible for, and find a way of communicating these risks that are very clear to you in a language or in a way that they will understand.
I think that sums it because it's a communication problem. And yes, when people get to understand what you're saying, then it becomes easier for them to make a decision in your favor. So if there are no other questions, I believe there are none. I will give my panelists 1 minute each to close off, but also to give us one thing that they think will happen around cloud and security in the next 1 year.
Okay. No, the only thing I'd say to wrap up is there's a book I'm trying to remember the title. Just don't want to read it, but it talked about how companies were not able to take advantage of the electric boom in the early 1900s because they were still built out in very traditional ways that depended on water as a primary source of energy and not electricity. And so organizations need to rethink how they work in this era where technology is everywhere, internet is everywhere, everything is everywhere. I don't fancy myself a prophet, so I don't know what predictions I'll give. Just that we're going to see more investment. It's just going to keep going up and up. Yeah.
Maybe as a recap, it's to highlight the statement that kicking the can down the road is not agility. So we need to face the reality that these investments, we need to make them, regardless of what the priority is. We need to prioritize the making of the investment. Then what we also need to foster, and what our commitment, I guess, is as your partners is in removing the barriers, right? And instead having guardrails. So the guidance really would be creating the guardrails, not necessarily putting barriers. And security is not a barrier, per se. That's how we need to see it. Is that cyber security, or having to conform to governance and the protocols that have been put in place, should not be seen as a barrier, but the correct guardrail to ensure that we adopt it. And lastly, remember the analogy around a waffle, right? So when you're building it versus the cone, let's put the waffle and then put as many of these toppings as we can. So as you set out, think of a platform approach where you have your base covered, then you can add on whether it is the dev part of it, the security piece, the automation, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Lewis.
Maybe just to sum up, I would say a statement, it's either by choice or by force. So you have an opportunity to invest in either cybersecurity, to invest in cloud at your pace, at a pace where you will understand it better, you will have a chance to make mistakes and recover from them, or wait until something has gone wrong and then you do not have a choice. You must invest and you will spend more. You will probably lose data. You will probably lose an opportunity to grow. And I think also don't sweat so much as an enterprise organization trying to understand the in-depth of technologies. Sweat that time, energy, understanding your business, understanding the environment that you're operating in, understanding your people, and then you can go with that understanding into the market, finding a partner who will deliver to you the outcome, the dream that will drive your strategy to the next level as an organization. So I think those are the words that I would leave with. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Please give my panelists a round of applause. And today is a cloud day, and we got some rain. Okay, so I'll excuse you now. Thank you.